This is The Science of Reading by Megan Carter. So, an introduction to the science of reading is that the science of reading is so multifaceted and um, it uses so many different protocols to teach reading. It teaches reading in bite-sized chunks, so it's not so overwhelming for students. Science of reading is also a science. So there's new research coming out all the time about the science of reading. So it's ever changing. It's not a curriculum, it is an actual approach to teaching reading. I actually used the science of reading, not technically, but whenever I was in music school, I took a year-long dictation class. We learned to dictate French, German, Italian, and English using the phonetic and IPA alphabet. Um, so we could learn how to pronounce the words, and we learned to decode the words. We also used the phonetic alphabet or phonemes and the phonetic alphabet. So it is very similar to that. Now, we didn't learn vocabulary, we didn't learn what anything meant by any means, but we learned to blend the sounds, we learned the syllables, and we learned what's stressed and what's not, kind of like phonemic awareness. So, the science of reading, kind of an overview, is we use vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, phonemic awareness, phonological awareness to teach students to read in bite-sized chunks. In the very beginning of all of that, we use phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. Um, the science of reading is not a curriculum. It is a science. So that is the difference between the science of reading and hooked on phonics and guided reading. It's not the same. We are teaching students in a different way and honestly a better way, in my opinion. Scarborough's Rope is really in depth, and I really like how it breaks down a skilled reader. So, in the first portion, in the top portion of Scarborough's Rope, you have decoding, you have phonemic awareness, and you also have sight awareness. And in the bottom half, you have language recognition, you have vocabulary, everything that you need to use context clues and to learn language comprehension is on the bottom. And then everything twirls together to make a skilled reader. But this doesn't happen overnight. We start small at phonemic and phonological awareness and phonics from ages 4 to 6, and then we move and we build upon that. So by the time they're old enough to read to learn instead of learn to read, they are able to use context clues, they are able to decode and encode words easier. um, it's just a better system overall, in my opinion. So the four-part processing model, on the bottom it has orthographic processing, and it also has phonological processing. Phonological processing has to do with sounds, speech sounds, and orthographic processing has to do with print. And then in the middle, we have our meaning processor, and that is vocabulary, that is learning the meaning of words. And then at the top, we have our context processor, and that is when students are finally able to read something, know what it means, put it into context. But it doesn't happen overnight, like I said earlier. We have to start at the bottom and build as we go. And that's what this model kind of shows us. FRS phases, there are four of them. The pre-alphabetic phase is where students, they can recognize some letters. They may not be able to recognize the sounds, but they can recognize the letters. And then the early alphabetic phase is where students are able to start rhyming words. They are able to start to know what the beginning sound and letter of a word is. They are also beginning to associate some letter sounds. The later alphabetic is when students start to use phonemes and phonological awareness to blend their words. They are able to see more sight words, and they are also able to start blending. And then the last phase is consolidated alphabetic. And the consolidated alphabetic phase is kind of putting everything all together, and they're able to um, recognize more sight words, they're able to blend, they're able to use their orthographic or um, print skills to decode words because of the phonological and phonemic background. The simple view of reading is actually one of my favorite models because it's just simple. If so, decoding times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. So the scale for decoding and language comprehension are 0 to 1, and they are put in percentages multiplied together to equal reading comprehension. So the person doing the reading intervention knows whether they're struggling with decoding or language comprehension. It could be both, but that is how they get their reading comprehension score. And if you can't decode words and you're good at language processing or language comprehension, you cannot be great at reading comprehension because you're not able to read the words, and it vice versa. So, in this model, it targets what they are having trouble with, and then the reader is able to grow from there in the reading comprehension score. Phonological awareness. So, what is phonological awareness? Phonological awareness is about the words that we hear, about the sounds that we hear. They are able to start counting how many words are in a sentence. And the students learn about rhyming words and breaking words into syllables. Why do we use phonological awareness? Students are taught phonological awareness 2 years, so like 4 to 6. And they are taught this so that when they become ready to start phonemic and phonics, then they know what the sounds sound like. And then they are able to translate them into print and start decoding words, but we can't do that until they know the speech sounds. Phonemic awareness is close to the same thing as phonological awareness, but it's a little bit different. Phonemes are the smallest portions of the word. So, for instance, take sat, s, at. A child would learn s and at, and then they would be able to blend it to sat. They learn to isolate and delete syllables or letters. They learn more sight words. But phonemic awareness is a lot about the sounds of the words and not the print. Why do we use this? Again, it helps students to decode words when it's time to print, to look at it in print. It helps students kind of get the rhythmic structure of English, just like German or Italian. Every language has a rhythmic structure. And it also helps it also helps them begin to know specific speech sounds. Phonics. What is phonics? So, phonics is actually the written words. So, we use phonological awareness and phonemic awareness to get students ready to read print. And that is why we use phonics. Phonics is about syntax, phonics is about what's on the paper and being able to decode and blend the sounds. And my conclusion, the science of reading, again, is a science. It is not a curriculum. The science of reading is so multifaceted we've only kind of gone over the beginning of the science of reading and not the vocabulary and fluency and all of that. But that comes later. So the foundation is phonemic, phonological, and phonics awareness. In conclusion, I think that this is probably the best way to teach reading. And if I had been taught reading this way, I think that I would read differently as an adult. Thank you. These are my citations. Have a good day.